I tell you right now, if anybody is interested in listening to two Brads talk about Shannon Ridener, Jordan Ridener, they got the right number, didn't they?
That's right.
So, hey, okay, so let's just jump into Shannon. You said you grew up around her. I mean, she's, probably, let's see, she turned.
Well, I'm 44. We were the same age.
Okay, so she's been about 44. Okay, so but and she died, was murdered, just a couple of weeks before her 40th birthday, right?
Right,
something like that.
Right, correct.
So she's been going now 4 or 5 years. But tell us about Shannon.
Well, we grew up in Crossett on Dogwood Drive. She lived probably 4 or 5 houses down from me from the time I was either kindergarten or starting first grade, and then we went all through school together, graduated together. We were really close. I mean, she was like a sister to me. There's a group of kids on Dogwood that, I don't know, I guess there's probably 5 or 6 of us that grew up together, and her and her little brother, and then her mom was, kind of, her house was kind of the cool place to hang out, especially when you got to like junior high. Her mother was a little bit more lenient than a lot of other parents. So, Miss Debbie, her mother, was like a mom to me. She treated me like one of her own, and Shannon and I got really close, throughout the years by basically living next door to each other. And, graduated, I went in the Army, and we kind of went our separate ways, and, we would touch base with each other, a couple of times a year. This was kind of before Facebook, so I don't even know, maybe what was the social media before Facebook? I can't think of the website, but, whether in passing or through social media, we kind of kept up with each other. And then, she was a good girl. She was a cheerleader in high school, and I think whenever she graduated high school or a few years afterwards, she kind of, took a wrong turn somewhere, and that kind of led her down a life of, drugs and this and that, the things you don't want to get involved in. And like I was telling you earlier, I guess probably maybe a week before she went missing, I got a message from her on Facebook Messenger that said, I don't know if she was on a bender or what was going on, but I hadn't heard from her for several years, probably 2 or 3. And she sent me a message, and it said, hey, I just want to tell you I love you. You've always been like a brother to me. I just want to know that I'm really sad and I need to talk to you. And I didn't get the message right away. I think I got it maybe the next day, so I messaged her back, and I was like, hey, what's going on? Talk to me. Here's my number. And I never heard back from her. And then, like a week later is when I got the news that she was missing. And then ultimately, several days after that, they ended up finding her. So.
Yeah, that's Jesus. Yeah, I could have, it's weird, to know someone and then, they go missing. Missing is not something that happens around here a whole lot, but to know someone that, and be that close to something like that is probably pretty daunting. It probably, make you, I don't know.
Yeah.
Make you think.
Yeah. Growing up or, as a kid, you never think those things, I think we're kind of insulated from it, just having a kid's mindset. You don't really think of those things happening, but yeah, it's definitely weird, growing up in a small town, things like that aren't supposed to happen, or you don't think they can happen, but yeah, they do, and now, with Shannon, and then, there's a long list of people that have passed away that I think could have been prevented, and then, now we have several missing people, so it's kind of weird, but, I don't want to speak in absolutes, but, I think that drugs probably has a lot to do with a lot of that.
Oh man, I there is absolutely no doubt about that, because that stuff is it seems to bring a lot of that around. But now that guy, speaking of drugs, the guy that was convicted of her murder, Brian J.
Right.
Russell, I believe it is.
Right.
Now, do you know? Let's just talk about him for a minute. I think he's in his 50s at the time, early 50s. He's still like 55 or 56 now, maybe a little bit older. He may be 60. I don't know. He was older when he
Yeah,
did all this.
he's definitely older by a good bit.
So, what is his history? Do you know? Is he from this area? Is he? I know he's had a conviction for meth distribution in 2016, a couple years before. But what else do you know about this guy?
Like I said, I know of him. Before seeing his picture, if he would have walked up to me and said, "Hi, how are you doing?" I would have had no idea who he was. I just heard his name prior to, him murdering Shannon. I'd heard his name, around the campfire, so to speak, from different people for different reasons. But I believe that, now don't quote me on this, but I believe that his family either is or has maybe a brother or his first cousin has something to do with law enforcement, like maybe a state trooper, and used to be a deputy in Ashley County. Now, I don't know if that's 100% correct, but that is what I was told. Like I said, after high school, I left CrossFit and went into the military and come back around 2010. And you would hear people's names pop up, and his was one of the ones that popped up of, shady business and drugs and this and that. So no, I definitely didn't hang around him or even, hang around anybody in his circle. So.
Yeah, well, and I get that for sure. But he is that. If you just look at him, he has that look to him. He just, maybe it's just a preconceived notion, whatever. But he looks like a criminal.
Right.
To me,
Yeah.
He just.
Not judging, but looking at what I know now, and like going over his rap sheet, it doesn't look like he had gotten in a lot of trouble until his later years, when I guess drugs became number one thing in his life. Sadly. Now, I could be wrong on that. He could have been in trouble all of his life, but I don't think he was. I think that he just really started involving himself with the wrong stuff, and then, get in trouble in the later stages or midlife for him. So,
that makes sense, because just from what I hear about the drug that apparently was his drug of choice, which was meth. Apparently that's what he got busted with. I mean, that stuff is, I've never even seen it, but I hear just from what I see from it, it's just like it melts people's brain away, to use colloquial language. You got me? It just kills people's soul.
Yeah, I'm not a past user or a current user of it, but I have seen it, and I know enough to know that I don't want anything to do with it. But you're right, it seems to melt people's brains and makes them do all kinds of just wild stuff. I mean, if you look at the stuff that they make it with, most of the stuff has skull and crossbones on the bottles that they make it with. So yeah, it can't be good for you. I mean, it's obviously not. I mean, you can look at people and see what the use of that drug has done to them. But,
you talk about Shannon that night. I mean, this is what I understood is that on somewhere around January the 13th of 2018, she told her son, I believe it was, that she was going on like a blind date to Louisiana or something like that.
Right.
And from that evening, the 13th of January, they found, video of her and maybe him at that Norsworthy store, which is just the beer store just south of, the town.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what happened then, you think?
From what I know, very little detail. I mean, I know some, but I think that they had went to Bastrop to pick up some alcohol because she was also an alcoholic too. And from what I hear, he was as well. So I guess they made the trip to Louisiana, since Arkansas or Ashley County is a dry county. They He got alcohol, and I guess his plan was to go back to his house and try to sleep with her, and one thing led to another, and she ended up telling him no, that she didn't want to do that, and he shot her. Now, I don't know if the alcohol, messed his way of thinking up, or the drugs, or probably both. He was thinking, all right, well, or maybe something, who knows, maybe they got in a little fight, but I have heard from several people that it was because she turned him down for sex. And I think, I can't remember off the top of my head now, I'm sure I'll remember later, but she sent someone a text message while she was at his house saying, hey, he's trying to sleep with me, and, I don't want to, and was trying to get that person to come pick her up.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and of course, that's all about power. I mean,
right.
Plus he's probably much bigger than her, and you're not going to turn me down. And from what I understand, he shot her in the head. I mean, it wasn't like it was execution style. This is not just oh, oops, I accidentally shot her. I mean, it's execution.
He actually shot her. I've talked to some of her family, and he shot her right above, like it actually hit the top part of her ear on her left side, like right above the. So I guess like maybe she turned her head, or maybe she was facing away from him and turned her head back towards him, or was facing to the side of him the whole time. But yeah, it was on, I believe, the left side of her head. And then, I can't. His roommate, Nancy Barnell, that's who it was. Is her name. Excuse me. Was his roommate, and I guess she either called, but I know at some point she made it over there and tried to come in, and he told her, no, you can't come in. And then another story is that she called and he told her over the phone, hey, I just shot Shannon. I need you to come over here and clean the place up. And I do know that she was charged not with murder or being an accessory to murder, but another charge that she actually served a little bit of time on, in which I think a lot of that was a probation violation, because I think over the last 20 or 25 years, she's also been in a lot of drug-related trouble. Actually, whenever I was I was driving, so I was probably at least 16. I was staying at a friend's house, and she happened to live across the road. And I'd gotten up in the middle of the night for some reason and was going to go out to my truck. And I opened the door to the garage, and she was in my truck trying to steal the radio out of it. And she didn't hear me come out. Yeah, and I got to the truck, and she was very surprised to see me. And
yeah, I bet.
We'll just say it didn't go very good for her,
Well, I mean, it's not. You got to be a pretty gangster woman to be out stealing radios, man. That's usually a guy's job, man. That's kind of wild,
Right. And I knew her because she lived across the road from my friend, but I knew of her. I didn't know her personally, and I still don't know her personally. I see her in passing, but
I've heard of her name.
Yeah, from what I've heard and what I know, I don't think she's a very good person. I mean, obviously.
Well, now, was there ever anybody else? Because there were early rumors, that there was a guy that was around. I don't know. He was probably older than me and you, and I'm 51. Mm-hmm. I think this guy was just a little bit older. But now did you ever hear that? Was there a guy that went with him to help him dump the body, or was it maybe someone with him when he got a DWI, or what do you think?
I never heard that.
Okay.
That's actually the first time I'm hearing that.
Okay.
You know how the Ashley County rumor mill goes?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and of course it's probably tied up to the lady you just spoke of. Is that there was somebody on the inside, and it was like, oh, this other guy, he may have went missing that weekend, and he just may have been off with a girlfriend. And everybody said, no, it was him. I know how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to clear it up some, because I didn't know if there was if he had may have ratted him out or something, but
yeah. And that's the thing, and from what I understand, he wrapped her up in a blanket, put her in the trunk.
Yeah.
And I know the location where they found Shannon at, and it's like a little bridge. It's not a small bridge. It's fairly long. I'd say 100-foot long.
Yeah.
If you know that part of the country, you know the bridges I'm talking about. There's several big creeks that run through there that run into the Ouachita River, and they're bigger than small creeks. But I've always wondered, how he done it. Because Shannon wasn't a tiny girl. She wasn't a big girl or fat girl by no means. But I'd say she probably weighed 140, 150 pounds. And 150 pounds of dead weight is a lot of weight. And I don't know if you've ever been deer hunting. I think you have, or any of the listeners that have ever been hunting to know if you ever harvest a deer. It's a chore getting them out, because obviously they can't help you. But I've always wondered, how he got her in the car, then got her out, and then got her over the side of the bridge like that without anybody helping him. In which, he's a smaller guy. He's smaller than me, and I don't think he's as strong as me. I could be wrong, but I just seems like he would have a lot of trouble doing that without the help of anybody.
Yeah, and and of course, that's we were talking also in the background about that area over there. There's been some other people from Ashley County that disappeared over there, but let's stay with Shannon for just a minute here. So he dumped her over there. Now, did a someone fishing find them, or what do you think?
At first, some kids, or teenagers rather, riding four-wheelers found her purse and some of her other, maybe it was just her purse, and whenever it hit the ground, some of her belongings spilled out. That was several days prior to them finding her. I'm not exactly sure on the timeline. I want to say 3 to 4 days, maybe a week before they found her. They found her belongings.
Yeah.
A couple of miles before they ultimately found her. In which it sounds like before he dumped her or after, he just, rolled the window down and threw it out the window is kind of what that sounds like, because that's where they found her purse at. It's like an elevated type bridge deal. I liken it to like a highway overpass that goes over the bottomland over there in that part of the country.
Oh, yeah.
But,
that's a big bridge, a huge bridge. It's probably like 80, 90 feet up to the sky at the apex. Probably.
At least. But I'm thinking that either before or after, that's when he done that.
Yeah.
They, like I said, those kids riding four-wheelers found her belongings several days before they ultimately found her, and then a game warden ended up finding her. He said that he just had a feeling that he knew that she was in the area more than likely. So he just had a hunt to check under that bridge. And I think it was several, maybe a couple of miles from where they found her belongings to where they actually found her. It wasn't very far.
Yeah, and this was almost. Let's see if I get the timeline correct. Like I said, on the 13th of January, she's on the video at Norsworthy's. They probably went and probably partied the night of the 13th, maybe over into the 14th.
Probably.
And then something happened there, but he also got the DUI on the 14th and got put in jail in Drew County. So all this went down quick, and it's the only way he could have done all that while drinking, because he got a DWI, is that he must have been messed out,
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
He's up 2 or 3 days there running around there doing all that, So he's
what time was it, if you remember off the top of your head, that they got them at Norsworthy's on the camera? Do you know about what time? It was in the evening time on the 13th, correct?
Oh, it was. That's right, on the 13th of January. Yeah. I don't know. I'm thinking, God, I remember seeing it. But maybe I didn't. That article that I have, that I think I sent you a copy of, it is so sparse. And on the days, it's like, 3 days, they start confusing on, the days that went down. But now I know this, that they didn't find her body. Shannon's body was not found by that gang warden you're talking about there until almost, it was a month. It was February the 15th, the day after Valentine's.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember how long it was. I knew that there was a gap in there. For some reason, I was thinking like a week or two, but yeah, a month. That sounds right. So they went to Norsworthy, or got captured on the camera on the 13th, and he got a DWI on the 14th. So, wow.
Yeah. Think about it. I mean, it may have happened. Hell, that may have been at Norsworthy's at 4, 5, 6 o'clock. Because during the winter, it's getting darker that time anyway.
Right.
By 6:30. Hell, he could have her murdered by 10, 11 o'clock. And
it makes me wonder if he had her body in the car whenever he got pulled over.
Very well could have, or just dropped it out. I mean, it had to be. It had to be either in there. Well, no, because he went to jail. Didn't he go to jail? I think that's whenever he got initially arrested. So he must have just dropped her out. Can you believe that, though? I don't know. I believe I'd be so scared and nervous just having ever had a dead body in my vehicle, much less having to speak to the police,
Oh, yeah. I would be a nervous wreck, and I guess maybe, like you said, with him being on meth and drinking, or maybe he got the DWI for being under the influence of methamphetamine. Who knows? But I do know he was a drinker. I have heard that. So within a 24-hour window, he was in Louisiana, and then within 24 hours was getting pulled over with possibly a dead body in his car and going to jail.
Yeah.
No, I would think that he probably didn't have the body in there, because whenever you get a DWI, I think they inventory your vehicle when they tow it, correct? I think that's right.
They're going to probably inventory it anyway.
Yeah, so sure. He probably had just, dropped her off.
Well, you think about it. I mean, I think they found her stuff at the Moro Bay Bridge by the Ouachita, like you said. And then he left there and he drove straight up, looked like probably straight over to where he dumped her body at, or, vice versa. And then maybe, smoking some whatever there at the bridge, and then went over there to Drew County to get him some beer or something. Who knows? I have no idea.
Right. Yeah, that's the mind of a criminal is a wild thing.
You never know. I was wondering about that with this other case that I followed with Delphi Murders. Is like, what do they do whenever all that after it happens? If they enjoyed it, they probably will, be happy about it. If not, if it was an accident, they're probably going, holy shit, what did I just do? And
right.
Then my theory on Brian Russell. I think there's more. I think, to me, I don't know. I don't have any proof of it, but I just think there's more to it. I think that he probably hurt more people than he's been convicted of right now.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Like I was telling you earlier, if you bring up a map from where he got pulled over for the DWI, where they found Shannon at, and where Chris Hooks they found his truck at. Well, let me back up. From where they found Shannon's body to where they found Chris Hooks' truck, the way a crow flies is under 10 miles. It's got to be in a straight line. It's not far.
That's his dumping grounds right there. That's all it is to it.
I mean, I grew up in Ashley County my whole life, and I can count on one hand the number of times that I've just driven between Hermitage and Fordyce in my life. I mean, if you're over there, there's a reason you're over there. You're just not going to go there for no reason. I mean,
that's the woods. I mean, it's the woods.
It's definitely off the beaten path.
I went over. I've had to go to Fordyce and to New Edinburgh, throughout the years, seeing remote family members, and to do job events over in Fordyce and such.
Yeah.
And Google Maps will lead you through places you'll go, what in the hell, Google, are you leading me through here? But that's what's there. I mean, it's just dirt roads and pine trees, and lots and lots of those tributaries, lots and lots of water.
Yep.
And where you have that water and you have criminals, you're going to have bodies. So.
I mean, my theory on the whole thing all along is that he has something to do with Chris Hooks. And you and I aren't the only people that think that. I mean, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of people that think the same thing. Now, as far as Brad Allen that went missing out of Fountain Hill, I knew Brad, and knew him fairly well. Probably haven't talked to him in 15 years, though. Probably the early 2000s, or somewhere around in there. But I mean, I don't know what Brad Allen's and Jeff Russell's relationship is or was. I don't know if they had one or if they did have one. But I just don't. There's too many. I don't think it's a coincidence, I should say. And some of your law enforcement people think the same thing. They don't have the evidence.
When you say a coincidence, like, do you think that? I mean, Brad. I mean, he was known to be a meth user as well.
Right.
I mean, if he
and Chris as well.
Yeah, and if this guy was a seller of it, sometimes if you get into trouble, you owe people money, or I think that Hooks had just got out of prison, right before he was murdered or went missing. Anyway, if you go to law enforcement sites, or I hadn't been there in a couple of years, but when I first started looking at his case, that he was still listed as an absconder, that he was
really?
just missing. Yeah.
Who Brad Allen is?
No, Chris Hooks.
Chris?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, which Brad Allen had served some time in prison as well.
For the same thing. Yes, sir.
Yes, and that and like theft and, doing stuff to supply his habit.
Yeah.
Or having to afford his habit. But yeah, you saying that, I have heard that Brian Russell was a fairly big dealer of meth. He was a known dealer in the area. So you could be on something there, and maybe both of them owed him money, and, he just, in his meth-induced, whatever you want to call it, thought, hey, they're not going to pay me my money, I'm just going to get rid of them.
Yeah.
I do.
I mean,
I know a guy that swears up and down that Chris Hooks is behind his parents' house in a well. And you can't convince him otherwise. He says 100% that that's where he's at. But
talking about behind his own parents' house?
Yes, behind Chris Hooks' mom and dad's house. There's like an old well back there.
Yeah.
And this guy believes that he's in there. Why he thinks that or how he thinks that, I'm not sure. But, maybe his theory is just like ours. Everybody has their own.
Right. Yeah. I have no idea. That's enough. Mine just complete speculation. But I want to tell you this. People stopped going missing when he went to jail.
Yeah.
Stopped dying.
Yeah. And maybe last year or a year and a half ago, I had heard that they had gotten a new lead about Brad Allen, and they called in state police and that Texas firm that does the search with dogs, and they went to a location somewhere around Fountain Hill, following up on a lead, and ultimately ended up not finding anything. So I don't know where that lead come from or.
Well, in the Brad Allen case, his fiance has she spoke a little bit with the police and then she shut down. Of course, I mean, if I was guilty or innocent, I wouldn't talk either. Specifically, I mean,
especially not a lawyer.
Yeah, yeah. You better have a lawyer for sure, guilty or innocent, because you don't tell them how you'll get. But now, that's kind of suspicious. But there was all kinds of things going on with drugs, back during that time. Now, it seems like it may have slowed down some now. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what's going on with it now. Like you said, I'm not really involved in it, but I'm a spectator. I enjoy learning about this because it's such a horrible way to live and end life like that. I mean, it just makes me wonder what kind of freaking human being does that. I mean, we've all been told no, you just move on. Like, all right, call your mama or somebody come get your ass or something, whatever. If she wasn't going to do what you wanted her to do or whatever, there's better ways to handle it than shooting somebody in the head,
Yeah, well, the only thing I can come up with in my mind, and I mean, I consider myself a pretty smart fella, pretty intellectual. The only conclusion that I come to is just like we were talking about earlier. It's just that meth. It does something to you. It turns a man into a monster. Yeah, it eats your brain cells up, and it turns you into somebody that you're not, or maybe it brings out what you ultimately are. Who knows? But it doesn't do your body any good.
All right, so two things before we run out here. I may want to do a follow up with her. I just we've covered a whole lot in here, but two things. I think that you're the one you said talking about thinking and such and analysis and everything. But I remember, if I'm not mistaken, you read a lot of those Audible books, probably about like I do, right?
I do.
That's right. And oh God, what was the other question I was going to ask you? Oh no! But tell me where. I mean, I forget your hours on that thing. I know mine's listed over master, but I can't remember how many hours it is. But I tell you, it's addictive to learn about things for sure. I know what it was. I know what it is, Brad. We're going to go to a Travelers game tomorrow. It's been my first time to go to one ever. What you going to tell me about going to the Travelers game tomorrow? What should I be prepared for there?
Number one, there's really not a bad seat in the whole place. Number two, if you're a beer drinker, in which, I mean, I'm not a big drinker, but I do enjoy a good beer, especially like a craft beer. They have like local beers on tap there in the ballpark.
Awesome.
And
yes.
The best one to go to will be on the first base side. There's a place called the Beer Garden. It's where it's like general admission. You can just go down there, and they got like benches and stuff. You can just kind of sit where you want. But kind of up on the level behind it is, I can't think of the name of the little shop, but they sell mainly beverages there. I think you can get a pretzel and maybe a hot dog there, but most of your eating places are kind of like behind home plate. But this place I'm talking about, they have a beer called Black Apple. Well, the brewery is Black Apple something, but they have a beer called Hibiscus something or another. I'm drawing a blank. But
sounds good.
it's amazing. It's brewed in Rogers, Arkansas. And people that can't get over that initial taste of beer, I think would really like this, because it's a little on the I'd say sweeter side.
Yeah.
But it's really good. It's Black Apple Brewery, and then it's hibiscus and maybe ginger and cherry. It's got a fruit note in there somewhere.
That's very interesting. Yeah, because typically when I think to a beer, I always go to like a Guinness Extra Stout. But man, you're talking about some complex notes for a beer going on right there. Sounds like you're talking about a bourbon over there or something.
Yeah, it's definitely different. But yeah, my girlfriend and I both enjoy it. The Travelers games are always a good time. A really good time. My girlfriend and I, we live in Little Rock. So, I don't know, we've probably been a dozen times this year, and it's something to do. We both enjoy sports. It's a good time. And the area where Dickie Stevens ballpark is, they call it Argenta. They've really, the players that be in North Little Rock have really made a push in the last 3 years to bring that area up. They've demolished some older buildings in the last few years, and they've really built it up. I mean, it's kind of it's going towards like a higher tax bracket living. There's some really nice restaurants over there. Number one, I would say would be to check out Brewed and Barley. Probably in the top 5 restaurants I've ever been to. It's that good. But yeah, they've got some condos over there. They're about to start building some more. There's all kinds of little shops over there. And then, over there in North Little Rock by the ballpark where it's at, there really hasn't ever been anything over there except for the last 5 years. And it's really come a long way. So, yeah, it's a good time. You guys will have a good time for sure.
Yeah. I appreciate that, giving a little kind of information on the area there. And I also appreciate, Brad, you spending time with me talking about Shannon. And like I said, we hope that we haven't offended anybody. I mean, she, like I said, I don't think we did. But I do appreciate you spending time with me talking about it. And hopefully we can get you on again sometime. It's been fun. I appreciate you, Brad.
Actually, this is the second podcast that I've been a part of. I have a friend in West Monroe that does one. He used to own a restaurant in West Monroe and has recently closed down, a barbecue place there. And really good guy, Kevo Meredith. I don't know if you know it, but the name of the podcast is called Toxic Masculinity. And
Toxic Masculinity. Okay.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
It's on Spotify and all your, big platforms like that. But he talks about everything from sports to a lot of true crime. That's kind of what it's geared towards. But yeah, it's interesting. So any of the listeners, along with this one, give that one a try. Good stuff. But no, you're talking about Audible.
I'll check it out.
You're talking about Audible. My listening time, I've listened for 22 months, 11 days, 6 hours, and 57 minutes.
22 months. That's like a half of a year. Let me just see where mine is. So, Jesus, let's see. I don't know. I know you were well above me, but I think you had been doing a little bit longer. I started in 2020. Let's see. Where is that at, real quick? I know we got to get out of here. Yeah, mine is 2 months. That's comparison. You said 22 months. Is that what you said?
Yeah, mine's 22 months, in which that's kind of misleading because a lot of the time, like I listen to it a lot, if I'm going somewhere. But I also listen to it. It helps me go to sleep. I'll get in bed and turn the TV off, and I'll put my earbuds in and go to listen to a book, and I may listen to 5 minutes of the book, or it may play for 8 hours, and I not hear a word they say because I'm sleeping. So that's kind of misleading. But I've got 212 books in my library.
Yeah. So you love to read. I can tell. And it's probably a little bit of everything, huh?
It is. It's a lot of it's geared towards the military because that's what I did for a big part of my life. So it's something that I relate to very well.
Well, we'll have to get you on and talk about your military experience. I'd like to hear about that. I'd be curious to know about that. But all right, my wife's looking at me. I got to run. But, man, I appreciate you, brother. Be blessed.
Hey, no problem. Just send me a message anytime you want to talk or do this again. I'm always ready.
I do appreciate you, Brad, talking. Be blessed, sir.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye.